Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on another one of our LinkedIn lives. Whenever I see that countdown go down, I always want to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off, which is appropriate. We're talking about career pivot, so lifting off into something new. See what I did there? Michael knows I like a bit of a pun. Before we get into all of our questions today, let my guests introduce themselves. Michael, no stranger to a LinkedIn Live. Perhaps you would like to kick us off and tell everybody all about yourself, please.
I'll be brief, Dean. Yeah, Michael Moran, founder of 1080, a career and executive coach. And I'm delighted to say I've worked with a number of people who've made significant career pivots in my time. And hopefully that I can share with the audience today the secrets of their success. Over to you, Archie.
Hi, I'm Archie, founder of the Streatham Cocktail Club. I've recently made quite a large career pivot, having worked for 15 years in wealth management executive search. I now run a cocktail business. So yes, not quite a 1080, but definitely a 180.
Brilliant. And I can tell everybody as well, that's not a virtual background behind Archie. It's not one of these posh Zoom backgrounds or something where it looks like a New York penthouse. That is just a small portion of the cocktail club's materials, I think. So one of the questions I was asked in the run up to this was, how would you define a career pivot? So, Michael, as somebody who's operated in that career space and coaching space for a while, perhaps you could put a definition on that for us.
Yeah, and I suppose the traditional view of a job search is what I call same skills, same industry, or same skills, new industry. A career pivot is manifestly very different from what you were doing. So Archie's going to tell us how he moved from being a headhunter to entrepreneur, setting up a cocktail business. For example, to give you some examples of career pivot, someone who was a derivatives trader in the city moved to become a maths teacher, a finance director in the city. He and his wife have got a passion of conservation, set up a garden centre business that you go and stay at and learn about your plants. Equally, financial accountant to set up a cake making business. So it really is making a significant transition. I'm going to be slightly pedantic. It does require you to transfer some of the skills you already have, but it definitely means working in a very different environment to the one that you started your career in.
Brilliant, thank you. So, I thought you've given us a really good couple of examples there, but I thought actually a really good example is young Archie himself. So, Archie, perhaps just share a little bit about this massive U-turn, I think is probably a better way of describing it. So tell us where you were and where you are now.
So yes, quite a change and quite a journey. I after graduating from uni, I got into executive search, working for a company called Stephen Raby Associates. My team and I moved to set up Metropole Search Partners in 2012, working with the same team for 15 years before having, well, quite a change to setting up my own cocktail business. So what the Streatham Cocktail Club is, we are a ready-to-drink bottled cocktail subscription, and we also do events teaching people how to make cocktails. Couldn't really be further from what I was doing before, helping people get new jobs within private banking, private wealth management. But after 15 years of doing something that I loved, I went and followed my passion, which is the world of cocktails.
Fantastic. And for anybody watching this, I'm going to give Archie's company a plug, because Archie came and did a couple of events for us at 1080, and I've never had so much fun making cocktails. But it was really good because the way that it was done, you moved us around, so we worked with lots of people, so we got to make cocktails and network at the same time. drinking and networking, what better, Michael, could we ask for in life? Is so you certainly get my vote. What I think is interesting is you talk about it was a passion of yours, so that probably leads me to a good question to continue that conversation. Is, well, you know, whether it's preventing you or some of the examples that we've heard about, what stops you from doing it sooner, do you think?
Well, first of all, it's actually quite a new passion of mine. The making cocktails, I don't think I'd ever made a cocktail before lockdown. I think a lot of people found some new hobbies slash skills, anything to distract them from what was going on in COVID in 2020. But we had just had the birth of our son in February 2020, and we were locked down with my in-laws. And I think everyone knows spending time with the in-laws can sort of lead to a bit of this, just to get through. But after a couple of months of getting through my mother-in-law's spirit cabinet, of making a different cocktail every day, I started a little blog called Cocktails of Lockdown on Instagram, where I kind of started doing recipes, and the kind of passion just grew from there. So much so that this needed a bit of money to be made back from it, and that's where the business idea came from. If I could bottle a fresh cocktail and deliver it locally, a bit like a sort of Freddy's Flowers or a Butter and Crust or Nonatonda. There are plenty of subscriptions available of different products, but no one seemed to be doing it this way, at least with bottled cocktails. But it was a new passion, so I'd only really been doing it for sort of 6 years now. But 7 months in, what was the thing that really prevented me doing it sooner? I suppose fear of failure. It's a big jump to junk in a 15-year career of doing something you loved, having clients, a network of candidates that you spent years getting to know, to be there ready for when the time came for them to move, to junk all of that in to go and do something fairly different. Fear of failure is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Michael. So from a coaching perspective, with different people you've worked with, there must be a whole, I'm going to use cocktail of reasons. See what I did there? A cocktail of reasons that prevents people. What sort of the main ones that you've come across in your experience, do you think?
Well, let's go back to what Archie said first and foremost. Passion is critical. If this is not for the faint-hearted, so he's right. Fear of failure often holds people back. Particularly if you're going into almost into the unknown. But I'm also going to say passion is both a strength but a weakness, because it is also possible that your passion means you lose sight of commerciality. I.e., and I well recall there was a lady, woman named Leanne, who was very passionate about modern art, and she set up a gallery. And the actual idea was to get modern art into office buildings. Actually, I'm going to describe it as a painting leasing business, i.e., and a great idea. When I talked to Leanne about, and she's bought herself a loft appointment, I think in Shoreditch, was representing American impressionists or whatever, younger artists. And then I talked to her about certain paintings that she didn't release out. She said, no, they're my favourite ones. I like them. I'm not going to. So there is that danger of letting commercial get in. Without doubt, the number one constraint is the financial, isn't it? Sort of moving from a steady business with a guaranteed, or what you perceive to be a guaranteed salary, to actually having to fund yourself. And again, I think if you said to why do often people give up, it's because, although the idea in sort of design is excellent, in execution is difficult. So I'm going to stick those as my main ones. I'm also going to say, Dean, about, if I take sort of the clients of 1080, about 10% set up going into their own business. a lot of them into consulting, taking their existing services and selling it back. But a fair number take their passion and employ it. But I've discovered that for the overwhelming majority, after about 18 months or 24, quite a number have given up. And it's not necessarily financial. In fact, most of them hit their financial targets. But there are three reasons. One is they miss the social interaction. Actually, they like being part and identifying. Secondly, income is variable. So if you need a steady stream. And thirdly, and I'm sure Archie's going to testify, it's bloody hard work. You'll end up doing a VAT return on Sunday afternoon. And a lot of people like the security of, well, I don't need to chase up payment, or when the PC goes down, somebody from IT comes. So they do prevent people from doing it or stop them staying within it.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because prior to today, when Archie and I were met to talk about this session, I remember Archie saying what I hadn't realised was I was going to become admin manager, marketing manager, PR manager, accountant, and it's probably the bits that we don't instantly recognize we might need that might get in the way. But so there's a whole host of different challenges, which is a nice segue to my next question, which is what Archie, how did you overcome the initial challenges? And I know that there was things that came up as you went along, but what did you do to overcome that sort of that fear of failure? That was the thing that prevented you. How did you overcome that? Was it literally sheer bloody mindedness, I'm going to go for it, somebody giving you a push? What was the pivotal moment, do you think?
I think what you need is support. You need, whether it be a wife or a husband or a friend, family, whatever it is, someone to believe in you and to help push you over that line, because fear of failure doesn't really go away. And then as soon as you have made the jump, then all of a sudden you've got imposter syndrome. So you need that support network of someone who you know and trust to tell you that even if it fails, it's going to be okay. You could go back and do what you were doing before, or you found a new industry, you could find something else to do within whatever industry it is. So I think you need a support network.
Okay, brilliant. Michael, what's your thoughts on overcoming those challenges? Because there's a few that we've talked about.
Well, I always recommend, because it is a major change, and I'm going to say often things when they're driven by passion, people perhaps have a sort of rose-coloured spectacles view of what the new life looks like. So I'll recall my derivatives trader going to become a maths teacher. I said, go and spend Friday afternoons in schools. Go and spend I know you like maths, you think teaching kids is going to be a good idea. Yeah, and he did take it up. But I've had several who've actually done that and said, you know what, Michael, I hadn't realised what a classroom was like. So absolutely stick your toe in the water before you dive in. The problem, of course, for this type of pivot, it does tend to be all or nothing. So you do have to go in the deep end. If you can create a side hustle, I would say, like, very common. If you've got something passion, go my cake making lady. She, started off doing weddings and using her Saturdays and Sundays to create these cakes. And only after, when she was sort of inundated with orders, did she think, maybe I could make this on a full-time basis. Yeah, and initially went down to 3 or 4, I think 3 days a week. And so eventually evolved the business over a period of time. But I recognize for some people that's just not possible. You need to have done the financials. I'm very clear when I'm working with clients, let's put together a business plan. Let's understand the revenues. Let's understand the costs. Understand your level of financial commitments and how long you can stick at this before you have to say, I'm going to call it a day. But Archie's also right. And if there's something you're passionate about and you like doing, And even if it doesn't work out, I always say to people, I know you'll be a better business person as a result of that. And indeed, if you go back into corporate life, the corporate body gets the benefit of all that experience you've accumulated, you know, your IT skills, your managing skills, your marketing PR skills. So, you know, and I go back to my example of Leanne. I know at the time, eventually she called it a day, but she would probably tell me, she said to me, she really, really enjoyed that journey, even though ultimately she wasn't able to sustain it.
Yeah. And
I
Archie,
completely agree.
yeah, both of you have been talking about network, people you know, and I think one of the questions we've got here from Anna is, you know, how has your wider network helped? And I think for me that's about leaning into that network as a strength to see where can I get some guidance, where can I get a check-in on, you know, is my idea crazy? I mean, Archie, I'm very thankful that you turned to cocktails, because I was making a lot of banana bread in lockdown, and I don't think there's a business there for me with that. You know, how has that wider network helped you, Archie, or has it helped you, do you think?
Absolutely, it has. But at the same time, you don't want to build a business based on friends and family and your nearest and dearest. It was a friend of mine who was working in the legal sector. He junked it all in to go and start his own fintech. And he described the "is it a good business idea" as the mum test. You ask your mum if it's a good idea, and obviously your mother's going to support you no matter what. She say, "Yes, dear, great idea." And you basically don't want that. You want to build a business off a good product, a good idea, not your friends and family and wider network being your only customers, because you'll never know if you've actually proved the concept. And while my wider network has indeed helped, I've had former clients book me for masterclasses, large orders of 20 litres of bottled cocktail for a client drinks party, friends who've booked me for birthday parties or whatever it might be. You don't want to rely on it. It might give you false hope in the beginning that you've got a good concept, and might make you take the leap. In my first month of the subscription, I had 3 customers. One was a friend that I did actually force to sign up. So I just wanted to test the technology works and if the website would work and everything else. He's still with me though, because he likes the product. One was actually a neighbor who I didn't really know, but she thought it'd be a good idea and nice to sign up. And the third was a random person that I'd never heard of. And if you can build a business from the get-go with people who've got no affiliation to you, then it does kind of prove the concept a bit better. But at the same time, you're running a business. You've obviously got to tap up your old network for stuff, but without making them feel that they should.
Yeah. And I think, Michael, we've got, some of the examples are not necessarily about going from a paid role to, working for yourself and setting up your own business. A lot of career pivots, like your financial guy going to work as a maths teacher. How can the wider network help in that scenario where you're going from one employed role, but you're doing a complete turn to something completely different? What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I was going to also reinforce, if you're doing as Archie has done, setting up your own business, then you have to be your own marketeer. And you need to get out there, and it's your network who become your ambassadors. So that's really, really important. I think the second one is much more difficult, Dean, because very often, if it's a very significant change, it's not where your network collides. Now, when it comes to like the teaching, that's a relatively easy one because there's a qualification process and then a formal application. But if you were making, I mean, if I go back to my my finance director, he and his wife had a very clear view. They wanted to buy this property, And when they did the research where they were originally going to buy the property, they realised it was not conducive to growing plants. The climate wasn't warm enough, so to speak. So you need to understand when you get into this sort of thing that maybe things that you've taken for granted in terms of networks and contacts are not going to be there. So you're going to have to build them up. You know, and in his case, he started walking and talking to as many people in the garden centre business, talking to clients when they're buying things. So you really do have to work very hard to build up a new network. And I go back to my original point. It's not for the shy introverted. You really have got to tell the world that this is what you're doing, and whether it's a different sector or a different job, because otherwise 9 times out of 10 recruiters will not employ people who've not worked in that sector or played in that role. The qualification piece is also very important, isn't it? You know, sort of significant career pivots will probably do require you to, you know, you've seen it. I think from lawyer to doctor, you know, but they are pivots you can make, but clearly you've got to go back to medical school or you've got to get qualified as a lawyer. So qualification is also important.
And I think, you know, some people will often say to me, I'd like to do a career pivot, but I don't know what I'd like to do. And I think that then means you've got to go into trying to find out, well, delve deeper into what energizes you, what skills you have. I know on the network question, Archie, you said, you know, you don't want to rely on family. I daren't tell you that your sister's posted 2 questions for this. So, but in deference and not in my cap to the fact that, for the fact that, you know, I work for her, I better show one of the questions, hadn't I? Which is, what skill from your old career has helped you in your new one? I want to sort of add on to that that's probably one of the things that if you are considering a career pivot, is to think about, well, what are your core strengths? What are the things that really energize you? How are those skills transferable? So from headhunter to cocktail king. See, I've given you a bit of a bump up.
Thank you. It's unfortunately already been taken, that term. Dale de Groff is the cocktail king, but
cocktail
maybe Prince.
Prince, Prince of cocktails. What would you say the skills are that you've been able to transfer?
I think definitely the sales and networking side, because you can have the best product in the world or best service in the world, and if you can't sell it, then you haven't got a business there. You know, headhunting is hard graft. It's sales. It's tough. You've got to get yourself out there. And while I don't want to rely on my old network for either side of the business, for the bottled cocktails or the events, you've got to be comfortable getting yourself out there and getting people signed up to your service. Otherwise, it's going to be even harder than the reality.
Okay, Michael, what's your thoughts on that sort of skills transfer?
And knowing Archie as I do, he underplays his what I call presentational skills. He is marketing, but he's an entertainer. And I suspect as headhunting, when you were either taking the brief or seducing clients to the role that they were going to apply for, presentation was all important, and that has transferred itself into your cocktail making. You know, you're someone who's out there and presenting yourself. I think I go back to, sadly, there are a number of jobs whereby individuals don't bring their whole self to work. They have skills, and then they're not utilised by the organisation. I well recall the lady I referred to about cake making. And I was speaking, she was in the finance department of a big investment bank. And I remember talking to her boss, who was amazed as to her commercial acumen of running a business. He said, I'd never seen her in that guise. Well, because they hadn't employed that skill. So there is that piece around, I go back to passion, that, you know, we probably have got skills, but, you know, we've not been allowed to use them. Well, this is the time they come to the fore. And I'm always going to say to people, you should do the things you love. You do the things you love, it won't feel like work. And I'm
Okay.
pretty certain that's what Archie thinks at the moment.
Well, it certainly comes across like that. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you one more question, though, Archie. I'm going to bring this one onto the screen. Is what could you have done different? Or if I gave you the keys to a time machine and you could go back to the start of the cocktail business, what would you do differently? What would you change? If anybody wants to see Archie speechless for the first time, this is it, by the way.
What would I have done differently? I think the truth is a lot, because I've not only changed industry, but I've also started running a business for the first time. And, such a cliche, make your mistakes and fail fast, learn quick, all this good jazz. But it's really hard running a business when you don't know what you're doing. Everything is unknown. And it's difficult because, yes, I would have changed 101 things and do them differently. But you can spend a long time making a decision because you don't have all the facts. You don't know how to make that decision, because whenever I like to make a decision, I like to have as much information as possible. But when you're doing something that's completely new, you don't have the answers. You don't have the information.
Like finger in the air, isn't it? It's,
exactly.
Yeah.
Should I start delivering to Tooting or Balham or Dulwich, or which way shall I go? I'd literally printed out a little map of South London that looked a bit like a risk board, kind of with different countries. I was colouring them in as to which way I should send my cocktail troops. And the thing is, what would I change the most? Be a bit more decisive when you don't have all the information, because you can sit there wondering whether you should do it or not do it. And this goes to the wider question of, should I pivot or should I not? And you've got to go for it. You've got to make the decision. Otherwise, you'll always wonder, what if?
Okay, brilliant. Michael, thoughts on what could have been done differently, or what you mentioned a couple of times about learning from it, and for me that's probably one of the keys, is how do you learn from the things that you did do, and what do you do to take that learning forwards? What's your thoughts on this?
And also, I'm speaking from what I'm going to say is the experience of the clients I've worked with. Actually, overwhelmingly, they all say they wish they'd done it sooner. I spent a long time thinking, could I do this or what, and gave myself 10 reasons why I couldn't do it. So they all tell me I wish I'd done it sooner. From my observation is that commerciality, that particularly if passion can be very dangerous, it can obscure the commerciality of doing it. So you do absolutely need to see, as is, am I pricing my in this case my product correctly? Have I got a distribution network? I've got to make sure people pay me. So that commerciality, I think, is really critical as well.
Okay,
being more commercial, critically.
Yeah, I think if I had £1 for every time my wife said, "I told you to do this sooner," I'd be a lot richer than I am now. But it was for me, it was about being ready to make the change as well. Me feeling I was ready, even if other people thought I was. I'm conscious of time, so Michael, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Top tips for anyone considering a career pivot.
I'm going to say knowing your passions. You said what's important to you, what motivates you. I don't think it's something that you sort of, I don't know what it is I want to do. I point me in the right direction. So the first thing is, are you passionate about what it is you want to achieve? Secondly, that sort of make the business case before you jump. So talk. I mean, we said the mum test, but do that piece of it. Is it financially viable what I'm suggesting? And thirdly, absolutely sell it to your network. Because it's your network that effectively, in like Archie says, will generate business for you. They're my 3 top tips.
Okay, Archie. Top
tip. So I sat opposite people for 15 years, telling them to make a jump, and you've got to go for it. Otherwise, you'll never know.
Brilliant. Thank you. I sense this is a conversation that we could have gone into the wee small hours of the morning with a couple of Archie's cocktails, but time is not our friend. I would just like to share with everybody that it'll be me back in the host chair again in June for our next Career Insights, which is why should we hire you? Getting it right. I just want to say a huge thank you to Michael and Archie for joining me.
And before we go, Dean, we need to do a trailer for Archie. If you're listening to this now and you'd be interested in knowing more, how do they contact you, Archie?
Via the website, or archie@streathamcocktailclub.com.
I'll put the contact details into the LinkedIn comments, or you can, Archie.
Thank you.
And don't delay. Book Archie today. That's the tagline from today's session. Everybody,
I'll be using that, Dean. Thank you.
It's all right. Yeah, checks in the post for the commission, I'm sure. Guys, it's been absolute blast having this conversation with you today. So thank you both for joining me. I hope the session's been useful for everybody watching. And bye for now, everybody. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Archie.
Thank you. Cheers.